Former Israeli National Security Advisor Yaakov Amidror, thank you for joining Voice of America's Persian service.
I'm glad to be.
I would like to start by asking about the Golan Heights. What do you think about how the Iranian government has reacted so far to the U.S. move to recognize Israeli sovereignty over the Golan?
I think at the last events around the Middle East, when we exposed the tunnels in the north part of Israel coming from within Lebanon, the fact that the Prime Minister of Israel and Chief of Staff told the public that we striked in Syria more than 200 times. And in last event in which the Americans recognized the sovereignty of Israel in the Golan Heights, the reaction from the Iranian side was very, very minimal. And I asked myself why. And I think that the question that they understand that they can claim many things against Israel, but at the end they try to build an Iranian base 1,500 kilometers from Tehran and 50 kilometers from the border of Israel. And they understand that the world will not agree to that. And they understand that at the end of the day, Israel has the upper hand because what they try to do is to be another colonial force in the Middle East, going into other countries like Lebanon and Syria and so on. And the reaction of Israel is justified by the natural law of countries who has the right to defend themselves. And the Iranians cannot claim that they are defending Iran 1,500 kilometers from Tehran.
How does this U.S. move over the Golan help Israel practically in countering the threat of Iran in Syria?
For tomorrow morning, practically there is no any difference. Israel is there with the declaration of the United States of America, without the declaration of the United States of America, but symbolically and for the long run, it's very important. Symbolically, because the major state, the major superpower in the world say, yes, we agree, recognize Israel's sovereignty in the Golan Heights. And for the long range, it might be a beginning of a long road during which we will have to convince other countries to recognize it. And the fact that the America did it will help us a lot. Will we succeed or not? Only the future will tell.
How concerned are you by some reports that Israel may expect some kind of retaliatory move from Syria toward the Golan Heights because of this U.S. announcement?
No, I believe that the Syrians understand the balance of power and understand that they are, might put themselves in a dangerous situation if they will attack Israel. So this is, with all due respect, is not for today, is not a big concern for us.
Moving on to the issue of Iran's missile development program, how do you assess the current threat to Israel from those Iranian missiles?
It's a very severe one. We learn it all the time. We build our systems to deal with it, to intercept the missiles. But we understand that the Iranians are breaking all the arrangements by producing long-range missiles. And they have to take into consideration that the reaction of Israel will be first to intercept their attack and second to react to what they try to do.
How concerned do you think Iran is by Israel's efforts to establish these missile defense programs in cooperation with the U.S., like the recent testing of the THAAD system?
I don't know what is the reaction, because at the end of the day, the Iranians understand that Israel has the right to defend itself. And what the Iranians are doing is to prepare themselves to attack Israel, not to defend themselves. And it's natural that a state under such a threat like Israel from the Iranians is doing everything to defend itself. But you have to remember, this is one part of our preparations. The other one is we are preparing the reaction, which will be devastating for the Iranians.
What kind of reaction is Israel?
We don't speak about details, but you understand that at the end of the day, Israel will be in a position, if we'll be attacked by the Iranians, to retaliate, and the retaliation will be devastating for the Iranians.
How would you compare the threat that Israel faces today from Iranian proxies in the region, like Hezbollah and Hamas?
Hezbollah, at the end of the day, is an extension of Iran. It was built by Iran, it was financed by Iran, many decisions done by Iran. It's not that Nasrallah decided to send his forces and to sacrifice 1,500 Lebanese at least in Syria. It was a decision which was taken in Tehran. The Iranians were more than ready to sacrifice Hezbollah warriors and not to send Iranian forces to fight on the ground. So in a way, they are the mercenaries of Iran fighting in Syria. So for us, and how we understand it, Hezbollah is not an independent organization. It has Lebanese interests. But at the end of the day, the decision making is done by Tehran, with combination and coordination with the leaders of Hezbollah in Lebanon. But this is a proxy used by the Iranians for their interest, ready to sacrifice as many Lebanese as will be needed. Hamas is another story. Hamas is independent, Sunni, Palestinian organization, which is getting a lot of help from Iran, but is not an extension of Iran. They are making their own decisions independently, and this is their strengths, and this is their weak point, because Iran is not behind the Hamas as it is behind Hezbollah. But it's a different situation. In both cases, Iran is more than happy to sacrifice others for its interests, but it's not the same situation. Hezbollah is an extension of Iran. Hamas is getting a lot of help from Iran.
In terms of the U.S. sanctions strategy against Iran to put maximum pressure on that government, how do you assess the effectiveness of that strategy so far?
So far, I think it's effective, but not enough. You know, before the Iranians joined the negotiations about the nuclear capability, almost 10 years ago, we were told by everybody that no, the Iranians will not come. And we helped to organize the sanctions on the Iranians with the Europeans, China, Russia, which today are not taking part in the sanctions. And at the end, the Iranians came to the negotiation table without, it was not their plan. They didn't thought that they will come. But under the pressure, Khamenei didn't have any choice but to come to negotiate, and you see the results. Now, I don't know. It's a beginning of a process. It will take time.
Can you imagine how long it could take for the sanctions to get Iran to change its behavior, which is what the U.S. wants?
No, because the lessons that we have is from sanctions that had been taken by both the Americans and all the other members of the group, the Europeans, the Chinese, and the Russians. Today, it's only the Americans and a few other countries, but not the Chinese and not the Russians for sure, and many Europeans are not taking part in these efforts. So we don't know how long it will take and if it will succeed at the end.
Well, what more does Israel want to see, or what more can Israel ask the U.S. to do realistically with sanctions?
At the end, we don't ask the Americans, and the Americans understand that it is an American interest, and they are making their decision by themselves. We can help technically with intelligence and so on and so forth, but decision making is done here in Washington and not in Israel.
In terms of Israel's relationship with other Arab countries, how significant are the latest public contacts that Israeli officials have had with Arab officials in the last couple of months?
I think it's very, very significant. It's a process again. It's not something that someone will come tomorrow morning and say, okay, from now on we have formal relations with Israel. It's a process. Slowly, slowly, we'll see Israel more involved with Arab countries. The Arab countries understand two threats that might put them in danger. One is the aggressive Iranian policy. You can see it everywhere. And the other one is the Salafist movements within the Sunni world. And they understand that when the Americans are pulling out, the only source of stabilization and strength in the Middle East is the strong country of Israel. And this is why they come to us and understand that we can help them to deal with those two threats, Iran and Salafi extremist movements. And there is something else. They understand if they want to be in a better position in the future, they need Israel technology for agriculture, for irrigation. By the way, Iran needs this technology as well, but the Iranians do not want to sacrifice the ideology for the benefit of their citizens. But Israel can be huge source of knowledge and capabilities and technology relating to areas in which both the Iranians and Arab country needs to change, and water and irrigation and agriculture are only 3 examples. And we hope that this cooperation will provide those countries better conditions in the future. It's our interest that the life of the average citizen in the Middle East will be better in the future. The better their life will be, the easier to cooperate with Israel it will be.
Well, in terms of cooperation, you know, some Arab countries have criticized the U.S. Decision on the Golan Heights, and critics of that decision say this could actually undermine the cooperation that you were talking about. How concerned are you about that?
I don't know, it's their decision. At the end, these are sovereign states and they have to make their own decision. We cannot sacrifice our interests and only to have better relations with Arab countries. We are doing both. And the truth is that I don't see the contradiction, so let's see what will happen.
Yaakov Amidror, thank you very much.
You are most welcome.